Hello everyone, I'm Railgun Gecko and welcome to today's video. This is the first of likely many in-depth explorations of perks in Destiny 1. If you've played Destiny 2, you may know that a lot of community research has gone into its perks, with incredible breakdowns on how exactly everything works. Unfortunately, Destiny 1 has not seen this level of analysis. I'm looking to change that starting today. The first perk we're looking at is explosive rounds. When I started this project initially, I thought this would be a fairly simple and short video, but I quickly realized that this needed a much more thorough look. This video will be a mix of scripted analysis and live commentary due to the level of data that I have to go over. Today, we'll be looking at the math of how explosive rounds works, how that translates to your gameplay, and whether or not that makes it a make or break perk. With that out of the way, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy. What exactly does explosive rounds do for you other than splitting your damage into two parts and giving you a slight area of effect? To figure out how the damage split works, I loaded into the heroic version of the World's Grave mission, which has 240 light enemies and plenty of majors and red bars to test on. When I was testing, all of my weapons were at 400 light for consistency. I used all 4 scout rifle archetypes and all 3 hand cannon archetypes against both yellow bar and red bar enemies to see if there were any differences, and it turns out that there were. Here's a bit of live commentary from me explaining the damage formula for explosive rounds against both red bars and yellow bars. It's a bit complicated, but I'll do my best to explain it as simply as possible. If you're not interested in a super in-depth breakdown, there's a timestamp on screen that you can skip to just see the summary. Thanks, Editor Me. Okay, I made a little PowerPoint to help explain how to calculate explosive rounds damage. There are a lot of components that go into it. The math itself is not that difficult, but there are just so many different variables that it's just a bit annoying to explain. So here, we'll get into this. Yeah, so how many variables is that? 10 different variables? Yeah, it's ridiculous the amount of things you got to keep track of. So first, base damage here, which is just D. This is your body shot damage. That's what we consider the base damage. Then the crit damage is your base crit damage, so whatever that ends up equaling. Then DIMP, which is for the impact. This is for the impact damage with explosive rounds. Then DEXP is for the explosion part of the damage for your explosive rounds. Then you have your crit multiplier, which is CMult, which is the crit multiplier, which for all hand cannons and scout rifles is 1.5. Then we have RMult, which is for red bar crit bonus, because red bars take double crit damage. So to calculate your critical hits against red bar, you take whatever the body shot damage is times your crit multiplier times 2. So we have that variable there. Then we have DYEXP, which is for yellow bar explosion damage. And the reason why is because the explosion damage component of explosive rounds is different on yellow bars. So we can't use the same variable for both because they don't equal the same thing. Yeah, it's a bunch of crap. It's really annoying. Then we have YECrit, which is for the yellow bar crit bonus with explosive rounds. This is a bit ridiculous, but the crit multiplier for yellow bars with explosive rounds equipped is not the standard crit multiplier. So again, we need yet another variable specifically for yellow bars. Yeah, I know, they think they're so special. Then we have ERBD, which is for your total explosive rounds body shot damage. That's simple enough. And then ERC, which is for the total explosive rounds damage for critical hits. So that's all of that. It's fairly simple there. Now we're going to get into the actual equations for this. First is the red bar formula. So let's go over the variables. Obviously, your base damage is your base damage. Then your crit damage is your base damage times your crit multiplier times the red bar multiplier. Then for red bars, your explosion damage is equal to your base damage. which is why we have this expressed here. Then your impact damage is half of your base damage, which is why it's times 0.5. I could have done divided by 2, but I wanted to keep everything as multiplication for this, so that's why that's set up that way. Then to calculate your body shot damage, it's just the explosion damage plus the impact damage. Really simple. Then for your critical hit damage, it's the explosion component plus the impact damage times your crit multiplier times the red bar multiplier. This is a bit more complicated. Now, this is the example with some actual numbers. So if our base damage is equal to 100, our crit damage is 100 times 1.5 times 2, which is 300. And then our explosion damage, if the base damage is 100, is also 100. And our impact damage, which is going to be 100 times 0.5, equals 50. So let's plug this into our formulas. Our body shot damage would be 100 plus 50 for 150, which is a 50% increase. That's pretty crazy. So I'll go back to that in a second here. And then for critical hits, it's 100 plus, which is our explosion component, plus 50, the impact component, times 1.5 times 2, which is equal to 300, which there's no increase, which is interesting. So when you have explosive rounds equipped, your body shot damage is increased by 50%, which is amazing. Your crits are not increased at all though. You may see on screen that there's like very, very slight differences, like maybe you deal 1 more damage when you have explosive rounds equipped than when you don't. That's actually just a rounding thing. In Destiny, the numbers that are displayed for your damage numbers, if there's a decimal, doesn't matter how small the decimal is, it will always round up. So if you deal 24.1 damage per shot, visually in game, the feedback that you get for that will say 25, no matter what. So it kind of skews the calculations a little bit, but yeah. This 50% damage increase is amazing because enemies that don't have crits, like Shanks, you deal significantly more damage to them. And then to enemy shields, you deal this 50% more damage to them, and you can rip off those shields super easy. It's amazing. And now we'll go over to how to calculate explosive round damage for yellow bars. These two this is the same. Your base damage is your base damage. Then the crit damage is the base damage times the crit multiplier. There's no additional bonus for yellow bars. This is just the base crit multiplier. Then for the yellow bar explosive damage, it's the base damage times 0.75. For reasons unknown, yellow bars take only 3/4 of the explosive damage. The impact damage is the same as with red bars, which is the base damage times 0.5, so it's only half. And then we have this stupid frickin' variable, which is the yellow bar explosive rounds crit multiplier, which is 2. Why? I don't know, dude. I couldn't tell you. It just is 2, so whatever. I did all the math for everything for this, and this is what happened. So now the explosive rounds body shot damage, again, really simple. It's just the yellow bar explosion damage plus the impact damage. Boom, there you go. And the critical hit damage is the yellow bar explosive damage plus the impact damage times the yellow bar crit multiplier, which is 2. So there we go. Not super difficult math, just a ton of variables you have to keep track of, which is why it's annoying. So now here's our example. Again, we're going to have D equal 100. So our critical damage is going to be 100 times 1.5, which is 150. Then for our yellow bar explosive damage, so it's going to be the base damage, 100 times 0.75 for 75 damage. And then the impact damage, again, is 100 in half, which is 50. So our explosive rounds body shot damage is going to be 75 plus 50 for 125, for only a 25% increase to body shots. But still, 25% is a lot. 25% is base weapons of light. Like having that at all times against yellow bars for body shots, pretty freaking good. And then for your critical hit damage, it's going to be 75 plus the impact damage times 2, which here is 50 times 2, so for 175, which means our crits are increased by 16.7%. It's actually 16.6 repeating, but rounding. So it's a little weird because with red bars, our crit damage is not increased, but against yellow bars, our crit damage is increased at the cost of our body shot damage being reduced slightly. This is just math-wise, this makes explosive rounds the objective best trait to use with your magazine traits. All of those like stupid perks that give like, oh, this gives you bonus damage against this enemy type, like what, Hannibal I think it's called, which gives you bonus damage against specifically Cabal Centurions. That's only a 10% bonus. So if you're using a scout rifle with explosive rounds that has explosive rounds, don't ever use that perk, because that's only a 10% increase, when this will give you, if it's a red bar, it'll give you a 50% damage increase for your body shot. So like there's no reason to ever do it. Unless you somehow only hit crits, then I guess, but like Cabal Centurions have shields, so why would you want to use a 10% increase against that shield when you could use a 50%? So, you know, rant over. Thank you, and we'll go back to the rest of the video. In summary, explosive rounds actually provides a damage buff. Against red bars, it's a whopping 50% increase to body shots, but no critical hit increase. Against yellow bars, it's a 25% increase to body shots and a 16.7% increase to critical hits. One other thing I want to mention is the radius of the explosion. To test this, I loaded into a private crucible match with a friend, stood near the heavy ammo crate, and slowly backed away to see the damage radius. This may not be exact, but my approximations are as follows. Explosive rounds has a total radius of 2.5 meters, with the full damage being dealt only within the first 0.25 meters. The damage will continue to fall until you are outside of the damage sphere. That was a ton of raw data that we just went over. But how does that apply to our gameplay? That's the point of this next section, the feel. But what do you mean by the feel, you may ask? Mainly, it's the reduction in shots to kill enemies on average. First, I want to show you 2 clips from people playing normal mode Wrath of the Machine. They are both using scout rifles, but one has explosive rounds and the other doesn't. When looking at the first clip, they need to shoot the shanks twice to kill them without explosive rounds. In the second clip, you can see that the shanks are getting one shot by the explosive rounds. This may seem like a trivial difference, but being able to kill enemies faster helps you from getting overwhelmed and can help you escape from a bad position by picking off a few enemies that are shooting at you. To get an overview of this in more than just normal mode Wrath, I made a list of 11 enemies that are frequently seen in raids, loaded into the 390 raids, and killed them with body shots using the 4 scout rifle archetypes and hand cannon archetypes, with and without explosive rounds. There is an absurd amount of data I gathered for this, but I'm not going to go over all of it, since we'd be here forever. I'll have a link in the description to a spreadsheet that has all of the exact data, but for the sake of time in this video, I'm just going to go over the general stuff. The enemies I tested were Vex Goblins, Hobgoblins, and Minotaurs, Hive Thrall, Acolytes, Knights, and Wizards, and Fallen Dregs, Vandals, Shanks, and Captains. On average, across all of these enemies, 15 rate of fire hand cannons require 28% fewer body shots to kill with explosive rounds. 22 rate of fire hand cannons require about 31% fewer, and 32 rate of fire hand cannons require about 35% fewer. 27 rate of fire scout rifles require about 30.5% fewer body shots. 37 rate of fire scouts require about 31.5% fewer. 42 rate of fire scouts require about 30% fewer, and lastly, 52 rate of fire scouts require about 35% fewer body shots to kill on average. The total average body shot reduction is about 31.5%. Cutting your time to kill down by a third is super helpful and makes missing crits far less punishing. A quick note for 37 rate of fire scouts, like Treads Upon Stars and the Wounded, they will still need 2 shots to kill Shanks and 390 Wrath with explosive rounds. The only reason why Burning Eye can one-shot them is thanks to Accurized Ballistics giving you +1 to impact, which is an additional 2.5% damage increase, just enough to one-shot the Shanks. The shots to kill reduction is fantastic, but let's not forget the benefits of the area of effect damage. In both King's Fall and Crota's End, you'll sometimes have a lot of Thrall chasing after you. They don't have a whole lot of health, but if you're not careful, they can easily overwhelm you. Thanks to explosive rounds, you're able to deal damage to more than just one target at a time, making clearing those hordes a breeze. Now that we've gone over the math and the feel of explosive rounds, what's the verdict? Is it a make or break perk for scouts and hand cannons? The answer is yes, for PvE. The significant reduction to time to kill alone makes it the best perk option for your magazine traits. The area of effect damage making clearing hordes significantly easier is also great. Another bonus is the increase in your effective range. Since the majority of your damage is on the explosion, your effective range is also increased, which is extremely noticeable on hand cannons. There's a reason why in the majority of my background footage for my videos, you'll see me either using my explosive rounds Treads Upon Stars or Geharris D, or some other explosive rounds scout or hand cannon. These benefits from explosive rounds are also why you will very rarely see auto rifles or pulse rifles used in high level PvE. It's really hard to compete against a permanent base weapons of light buff that stacks with every other damage buff in the game. I hope this explanation helps you in your hunt for god roll weapons. The next in-depth perk analysis video will be about ability return perks, such as Grenadier and Army of One, and the helmet mods. Though if you thought the amount of information for this video was a lot, you haven't seen anything yet. So don't expect that video for a good while. I want to give a special shout out to my friend Boy Meets Evil for helping me with gathering together this data. He stuck it out with me, slugging away for several hours, plinking at 390 enemies to find out how many shots it took to kill. Probably would have gone insane if I had to do all of this solo, so I really appreciate it. Well, that's all for today, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and God bless.